For today's program, we have two special guests from the SeaTac Airport. They'll be discussing a unique intersection of art and flight. Tommy Gregory is the senior project manager and curates the art collection that's at SeaTac Airport. And he is joined today by Annabelle Goavec, the airport's public art coordinator. So pleased to kick off the program today, welcome Tommy and Annabelle to the Museum of Flight. Guys.
Thanks, Gail, and thanks Museum of Flight. This art and intersection is really incredible, and what Lemire Group helped do out there with local artists, if y'all haven't seen it yet, definitely venture out. The Red Barn has a great exhibit as well. And yeah, like I said, my name's Tommy Gregory. I am the Public Art Program Senior Manager and Curator for the Port of Seattle. There's young Tommy. Where I was, my intro to public art was with artist Luis Jimenez, who passed away back in 2006, but was infamously known for making the Denver Mustang, which graces Denver's International Airport, which has quite a conspiracy theory thing going around and was recently in the New York Times. But yeah, great artist, and I did not know that that was a profession until I worked with him. And the next slide shows his piece at Fruition. It was made posthumously, or completed after he passed away. The piece actually tragically took his life, but it meant so much to me to work with a guy like that and learn that basically that airports are collecting art throughout the country and the nation and the world. So yeah, it was just a little background on me. That it started out as a fabricator, installer, and got into curatorial studies, and then eventually project management and curating art programs within airports. And then I'll hand it over to Annabelle.
Hi everyone, I'm Annabelle Goavec. I'm the Public Art Program Coordinator. I've been working with Tommy for 2.5 years, going on 3 years. I used to work at the Port of Seattle headquarters, and during COVID-19, I was given a chance to do an internship with this department, and I never left. So yeah, now I'm full-time. Here's a picture when we did an installation in the IAF. So yeah, excited to be here today, showing you what we've been working on, and excited to hear your questions at the end. Thank you.
Yeah, Annabelle has been incredible to work with. We've done a ton of work in the time we've been able to collaborate together through the Port of Seattle, and specifically at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. And this is our ongoing relationship with the Museum of Flight. We actually have 2 long-term loan pieces in Gina Marie Lindsay Hall. They're there for the foreseeable future, and we're super happy to keep our collaboration going with the museum. In the next slide, I wanted to kind of dive into the stuff that most people don't know about how public art is a thing. And it's not just in aviation, it's in your neighborhoods. Most government agencies, even universities, have a Percent for Art program. The Port of Seattle recently, within the last couple of years, returned their percentage from 0.5% to 1%, and that happened actually with a good collaboration with Lemire Group, who helped us write a strategic plan, who also helped with the curatorial work out in the museum you'll see today. But yeah, we went from 0.5% during the recession, 2008, 2009, and operated under that until about 2019, where we returned our Percent for Art to 1%, which is a very healthy percentage considering the amount of capital projects the airport is working on. And what that means is capital projects, construction projects. So things that if you see a bunch of concrete and rebar getting laid at the airport, 1% of that overall construction budget is going towards visual art. That's a really cool thing. It creates jobs for the creative economy, not only of the greater Puget Sound area, but also the nation, because we are doing open calls for artists throughout the country. So yeah, I'll read through these real quick because it's just good information for anybody who's interested in public art to have. So how a project begins is like we identify a budget. So 1% of a construction budget comes up. Annabelle and I go to a bunch of construction meetings where we identify locations within that project. And yeah, we write up an RFQ. That stands for Request for Qualifications. And we put that out to the public. And that means artists can apply with their past work to be considered for public art commissions. And then sometimes acquisitions, and we'll talk about that as well. So Annabelle, talk a little bit about the open call process, because you have been doing the incredible amount of work of writing RFQs, and to let you know, we have the most, so if you're flying out of Seattle-Tacoma International Airport or into, we have the most public art contracts out in the nation right now, so we're the busiest airport for public art.
Yeah, so like Tommy is saying, we're already busy right now. We have about around 30 contracts going on. That's new artworks that you'll be able to see at the airport in the next few years. But RFQs is a chance for us to diversify our collection and having local and national and international artists joining our collection. So we usually show them on our website and other cultural partners, such as For Culture, Artist Trust, and artists of 3 weeks to apply, and then we have a selection panel making a decision. That's another other important point is Tommy and I don't decide which artwork or which artist is being selected. We have a panel making this decision. So it's always a fun process.
Yeah, and that's right. So it's a very equitable process, and we have not only selection panelists who are professionals in the field, but also we run that through our board, which is a very supportive public art board, and that's why we've made a lot of things happen as well in the last few years, is that board has shifted with a lot of great support and has freed up our ability to be successful, and that's why you see more art in the airports. So in the contract phase, which is once an artist is selected by that selection panel, they get to sign a contract with our gracious CPO department, who is working diligently to make sure that we're getting those contracts out to public artists. And then the design phase, which like one of my favorites, is because it's where like the idea grows. It's like the seed that then grows into a public art concept and is approved, and then they go from design phase to fabrication phase, which basically means they're making the work, and that also is fun because we get to go do studio visits, and you'll see some images of those in our slideshow. And then the fabrication, or after that, is the installation phase, and then closeout. So installation could be something as simple as hanging a painting on a wall or doing a massive site-specific quasi-construction installation in a main terminal, and you'll see some of those as well. We'll get into the pretty pictures in a second. But yeah, these are in order for us to be able to get faith from our leaders in a way is to draft a strategic plan, and we worked with the Lemire Group again, awesome consultants in helping us do that. And this is just our mission statement, and it talks about what our goals are. And we're in an aviation program, so like the airport cares specifically about making sure people travel in and out safely and in a timely manner. We care about that too, but we also care that they're enjoying their visual experience while doing that, and that we're highlighting cultural elements and times of the region. And we do that with this kind of backup to say, here's what our expectations are and here's what we're going to deliver. And so far we've done that, and with a pretty small staff, considering we have the largest or the longest running public art collection within aviation in the country. So very proud to be doing that with a 3-person staff with a great intern as well. The next slide will show, oh yeah, this is fun. We should just hit this real quick, because this is why we're super busy. Bump, 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 art, 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 art. And these are like our deadlines. And again, meeting all those deadlines. Really happy to be doing that. And the budget, of course, allows us to do that. The first project we're going to talk about that was generated by the strategic plan is the Widen Arrivals project, which you see on the far right, that shows a deadline of 2025, most likely be 2026, but hopefully 2025. And we selected a local artist and an international artist for that opportunity. And there they are. Brian Sanchez, his studio is over kind of in the Soto area. So he's local, great painter, and soon to be a very well-known public artist, because it's a huge commission, and it's basically the first thing you'll see as you're arriving to the airport, either to pick somebody up or drop somebody off. And then Sabine Marcellus, who is like world famous at this particular moment, she's doing incredible work internationally, and is also doing the Widen Arrivals project. There's a bus canopy with some seating, custom kind of seating by her, which we're going to be super proud to see. And they're both killing it. It's going to be a great project when it's all said and done. So they're contracted now. And then the next one we're talking about is, you talked about this. This is a good one.
Okay. All right. So this project is a Concourse N. We have about 6 opportunities in this location. It will be 3 on the concourse level and 3 on the mezzanine level. For this project in particular, Tommy was able to partner with the Pilcher Glass School and Museum of Glass. And 2 of the artists that were selected for this project are able to do a residencies there. Can we give names? No, we can't give names.
Yeah, they'll be on there.
Okay. So the artist that was selected for the restroom wall, her name is Crystal Wall, and she's an indigenous artist. I think her residency is going to start in August, but yes, this wall right here. For the grand sale table, we were able to select 3 different local artists, so that's another really exciting project. And then the display window will probably be used for temporary projects. And that's the other level, the mezzanine one. The lookout deck sculpture right here, that Fumi was selected for this one. No, yeah, number 4 is not happening anymore.
We could move that to there.
Yes. And then for the digital wall, we hired 5 different artists. Some of them are national artists and others are international. So again, it shows that we are trying to, we want to show that SeaTac is an international airport, and we are trying to show that with the artists that we hired.
Yeah, and you could see those artists here. You could kind of ignore the Star Wars stand-ins. Those were there because the artists that were selected for our North Main Terminal project haven't signed contracts yet, so we don't want to announce it just yet. But those are placeholders, which means those will be living, breathing artists and not Star Wars characters. But yeah, so Anna Malowski was one of the artists selected on the video wall, which Annabelle mentioned, along with 4 other artists, Dan Meyer, Marco Brambilia, if I'm saying his name correctly, Rebecca Bird, and Hussein Alamos Awai. And they're located all over the country, actually all over the world. Anna just has a studio in Ballard, but just took a teaching position in Sweden. So glad that we could contract her before she has, I don't know if it's temporarily or permanently departed the region, but definitely will have a foot in the door here still with her permanent piece at SeaTac. And then, yeah, so those are the artists contracted right now, which, again, that's a ton of projects that we're working on over the next 3 to 4 years, and excited about working with each of those artists. So recent commissions. This is like, I think the right when I got hired is kind of where we're starting. I inherited a project through the North Satellite, which if you're ever flown out of there, you'll see some pictures of it soon. But they just had a full remodel within the last couple of years, and there was in 2 phases. So they shut down one side of the airport and kept one side of that terminal and kept the other side in operation. So this was before passengers got in. I'm glad we moved the seating. It was really old and dated and not really visually appealing. And we did an elevator public art piece where we worked with Metz and Chu. They're based in British Columbia. Super professional people, extremely sweet and genuine in their craft. And they worked with Franz Meyer of Munich to create these etched glass panels. There are 20 panels that go approximately 40 feet tall, and they also have a seating component, which is a bronze log that was cast in Oregon at Blue Mountain Foundry. Impeccable craftsmanship on that as well, and that's us installing that with our port construction team, who help us a lot with some of those major construction projects. And there it is. I didn't even know that photo existed until Annabelle found it. I was like, oh, I forgot. That's back when I used to wear collared shirts, pre-pandemic. But yeah, Metz and Chu, there they are in the front. Jacqueline Metz and Nancy Chu, super sweet people, and they did a fantastic job. Next slide shows another project that was associated with the North Main Terminal, but the North Satellite, but was more on the STS level. So the Concourse A area, which connects to the North Satellite, was a local artist, Cable Griffith. He's based in Burien. He teaches at Cornish, and he's traditionally a painter, but did his first ever public art glass installation. And he worked with Peters Glass in Paderborn, Germany. And I was lucky as the project manager to fly there and test the colors before and make sure that everything was looking good before we brought them into the airport. So I'm taking a photo of one of their really amazing glass specialists who is painting the enamel on the glass, where then it gets cooked in a kiln and then sandwiched and fixed between two temper fire-rated glass panels, which you'll see in the next slide, getting installed. And there's no construction people here that I know. I was hoping a couple of the port construction folks would show up so I could say, hey, remember when I told you to raise that or cut that bolt off? Because the reason there's a glass panel there is because they didn't listen to me and it broke. Those are the woes of public art sometimes, and it was a little costly woe, and also it had to be remade in Germany, so luckily it didn't delay the project. But yeah, sometimes listen to the public art person. They kind of know what they're doing. And there it is getting inspected before we could totally open it up to the public. And those, that's just the nature of the beast in public art. There's so many levels of oversight, bureaucracy, in a good and bad way, but also just making sure that we're making sure that these pieces stand the test of time and they're safe for public consumption. And there it is, by a local photographer, Raphael Soldi, shot this for cable and for the airport. And it's a beautiful piece. Custom work. It probably will never, ever be done in another airport again, work like this, because putting glass panels in an escalator vestibule is ridiculously complicated. And we found that out. And so you might not see another one like it. So when you fly out of Concourse A, enjoy. So there's the North Satellite, the other phase. So if, Annabelle, if you don't mind, show, like, if you have that little, yeah, there you go. So the right side is where Metz and Choose was. This was under construction directly after that phase had completed. So I'm on the light rail right now going to work, and I saw this construction. I thought it was worth documenting. And the next slide shows you our endeavor. Annabelle, this is right when you kicked on with us in the internship. We were working with an artist, also local, John Grade, who's got the big piece at the Seattle Art Museum in the kind of main lobby. This is his spider crane getting dropped off with about a 1/4 inch clearance in the freight elevator. Super lucky, because that was not a cheap rental. And yeah, we have to get equipment like that on the active airfield. So there's planes landing around us. We're transporting 400 different objects of the artist's work on the airfield, getting it into the job site, and then overseeing tons of, where there's other construction crews coming in and out with equipment. It's just a very exciting time, but also very stressful. You can see the next image of the lift in situ, where we had custom scaffolding. So there's actually travelers going in this weird canal or a cavern between the scaffolding to their actual gates while we're installing behind the barricades. It was really intense, really fun. And then on the right, there it goes. You can see us craning in sections of the artwork. So if you fly out of the North Satellite, which is predominantly Alaska Airlines, you'll see this monumental artwork, which again, I don't think you'll see another one like this in an airport because extremely complicated and labor intensive and structural steel, like very expensive to get it in, but worth the while at the end when you see it. And the next shows, me and Annabelle do tours at the airport, so if you're ever interested to see our work up close and personal, there's Tommy with mask. After the piece was installed, taking a tour through and giving them a little behind the scenes of the airport collection. So maintenance conservation. Recently, we hired a public art technician, Pete Fleming, and he's working closely with me and Annabelle, addressing the robust collection we have and making sure that it's clean and safe for the public to enjoy it. This first slide is back when I was working in Houston, because before I came to Seattle, I was managing the 3 airport system there. And I just wanted to show this because public art is construction. It really is. You're right. This piece was made by an artist named Ben Waitana, and it's in the international arrivals area at Intercontinental Airport, and just a monumental piece. And we're literally, that little cloud up there is not cloud, that's the power washer and the water kind of like spraying away, because we power washed the whole piece and then resealed it. And anyway, public art, again, once it's in space, somebody has to care for it, and we do that too. Yeah, so yeah, this is pre-Annabelle, but Trimpin's piece which you can't go around Seattle and not see a Trimpin. He's all over the city, and rightly so. He's an amazing artist, originally from Germany, and has been beautifying the city of Seattle for the last 30 years. But he has a piece in Concourse A. It was the first kind of placeholder image when the slideshow started. And this is us in his studio back when he was kind of in First Hill, and he was doing some finishing touches on this kinetic piece. And the next slide shows us, after safely loading it up, taking it back to the location in Concourse A, which is right next to a beautiful Frank Stella. Everybody knows who Frank Stella is, I hope. And if not, look him up. Very established and kind of like marquee painter of the United States, and kind of been doing his works for over 50 years. And the airport is really lucky to have one. But yeah, there's Trimpins going in. So this is part of our maintenance plan. This is kind of a maintenance/conservation job. And in the next slide, you'll see it in its safe case. And it is kinetic, and at the current moment, it's off because there's a little element that during the pandemic got jammed. So we have to recast this really pivotal and instrumental element that kind of keeps the whole piece running. The difficulties of kinetic work, but at the same time, once it's back to life, will be, it makes ages, of all ages, people are interested in stopping and slowing down and admiring Trimpin's work. All right, yeah, this was another very first thing. So when I got hired, came in 2018, and was like, a lot of the artwork was placed at areas where, I guess it was put there back when the travelers were at a reduced rate. Like, we're seeing approximately 55 million people a year at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, and the artwork was placed there when they were, I guess, seeing half of that load. So the public gets a little bit brutal. Like, I would have never put this Francis Celentano next to a bunch of chairs, because that's not really the safest place for a very delicate painting. But again, I think they had different ideas in the past, and just it was my hope to kind of like keep the preservation of these works. So what we do is we recite artwork. That we consider that maintenance. So we took down this work, we cleaned it. We worked with our port construction services team, because at that time we didn't have the budget to hire like art professionals to do the reinstallation. But these folks are like journeyman carpenters, and they know what they're doing. And with right oversight, they became proficient art handlers. And this Francis Celentano painting is very important in the collection. It was one of the first Abex pieces, along with the Stella and the Nevelson, collected in the early 70s. So it's important, and he has since passed away, and his family still lives in Seattle area, and when they travel, they want to know that we're taking care of the work. So we could totally show that we are by reciting this work to a much more safe location, which is just near the airplanes from the Museum of Flight and Gina Marie Lindsay Hall. So if you are flying internationally, all the international kind of ticketing areas are right there, and then the Francis Celentano is next to the aviation office building to your left, and then right next to Gina Marie Lindsay Hall. So a very prominent spot and much safer. It's not getting coffee spilled on it anymore. Here's where Annabelle gets to come in a second. Because we were, again, like during the pandemic, we took this as an opportunity to start cleaning things up. And this was another painting, unfortunately placed at the time, probably what they thought was a safe spot, but over time with the amount of passenger flow, completely in a susceptible area for damage. Even the stanchions were led to damage because people would lean on the stanchion would fall over right into the painting, because the painting is like a foot away from where that dude is leaning. And the column also, like there's tons of columns that are support beams that were unfortunately not relayed properly to the artist. So when he did his painting, which you see to the left of that one column, he placed the columns in his painting strategically, but then when it got to the job site, they gave him the wrong dimensions, so none of it lined up. And if you saw it in person, it was just visually distracting. So again, I came in, we had a small budget for restoration, and we're like, let's clean it. We can't do a full restoration, but we could clean it and recite it. So we took it down, we worked with an conservator in Port Angeles, and had it again, touched up, and then we recited it from Concourse D to Concourse A. And this is Annabelle's video, I believe. We were on site with the port construction crew, working late into the night. I think it was like probably 2 in the morning or something about this time. And weirdly enough, weird things happen at the airport at 2, not just art installations. But anyway, it was a very exciting moment for us to recite this Michael Fagens piece. He's also a very revered artist in the Seattle region, and passed away, I think, in 2001, right? Yeah. So just want to prove, his family also still flies through the airport, and we get to show that we're caring for that cultural asset. And there it is today, which you can actually see the whole magic trick.
So, like Tommy mentioned, we have commissions, we have maintenance and conservation projects, and we also have acquisitions. Acquisition is when we purchase a piece that's already made, and so it's direct acquisition from either an artist or from a local gallery. So during COVID-19, that was before my internship, right before my internship with Tommy and the art program, but they were able to ask the commission office to have a budget to purchase artworks from local artists for the nursing suite in the North Satellite, sorry. Those two projects are just, but yeah, so the artworks were purchased and placed in that location. At first, it was open without any artworks, and then I think we purchased 10 or 15 artworks from local artists. So here you have a garden by Tina Onko.
And Tina's located her studio's just a stone's throw from the airport, kind of on the Rainier Beach light rail area. So it was nice to get a local artist.
And that's another piece that's been installed. It's in the A concourse on the South Satellite train level. That's the newest interfaith praying room. So this piece is called Currents, and it was made by the local artist Weston Lambert. Again, highly recommend checking it out. There's another piece by Jun Sekiguchi that's right next to it. So yeah, it's a part of the newest acquisitions that we had at the airport. And then this one, that's an artwork by Mary Watt. That was in 2020, and there was about 10 high school interns who had the idea to incorporate more indigenous artworks at the airport. So we were able to go to our commission again and ask for additional funds. We were able to put an RFQ and purchase around 30 artworks from local artists, local galleries. This one was purchased from a local gallery downtown in Seattle. So it was from the Gregory gallery. And so yeah, the picture on the right shows the installation. We partnered for this project with a local company called Altec. And yeah, so if you fly internationally and arrived at SeaTac, you will arrive at this newest facility, and you'll be able to see all of these newest artworks.
Yeah, so the first thing you'll see before you enter the city proper, flying internationally, is this Marie Watt. And the next slide will show you her piece in all its glory. And it's extremely great timing for us to have collected this from the Gregory Gallery, because at that right before this, I believe Marie Watt had like a sold-out booth at the Armory. So her value has gone up. So we were lucky to be able to purchase it at a cost that was within our budget. And we're always thinking about that. One, we want to give artists opportunities and make sure they're getting a living wage. But at the same time, we got to be cautious of our budget. And we did have great board support in order to create this endeavor based on the 10 high school interns concept. So it's really awesome to see this collaborative endeavor come in on time, on budget, and now you get to see this when you fly internationally through the international arrivals at SeaTac. So temporary art, I'll dive into this a little bit. So we talked about conservation, maintenance, acquisitions, commissions, and then temporary art is another part of our job. Before I left Houston, where I was managing the airport system there, the collection, I figured we're at the Museum of Flight, talking about museums is kind of got to be in our repertoire here. But this was an old museum on the grounds of Hobby Airport. It was called the 1940 Air Terminal Museum, and it used to be the original only air airport and terminal in Houston, and it's since turned into a museum. It got very little attention. I mean, it's a beautiful Art Deco building, but it wasn't really frequented. There weren't a lot of people visiting it. So I was like, well, I collaborated with their director, and I was like, can we do a temporary art installation here and have a big reception? And we had the most people that ever attended that museum in one night kind of come through and just enjoyed a lot of contemporary work that was integrated and really responding to what this Art Deco building did. This is an artist, Pablo Jimenez Zapiola, who did a projection on the outside of the building, one night only kind of thing. And there were 6 other artists in the building, kind of what is happening here today, where there's that kind of intersection between fine art and flight. I did that before I left Houston with this 1940-year terminal museum, and it was just a super successful endeavor. And I wanted to keep that same kind of temporary art energy here. So when I landed in SeaTac, and then it was still called SeaTac then, now it's SEA. I was like, what a beautiful place that we get to hang out in and try to react to what nature is, react to what the world is doing. So temporary art is really awesome for that, because if you don't like it, it goes away. If you do like it, hopefully it excites you and you ask for more. So I was just really getting used to the city at this particular moment, always taking the light rail, and I was like, okay, you got the mountain here, this is right next to the cell lot. I was like, there should be a temporary art installation here. I reached out to an artist who was based in New York who I'd worked with in the past, and she came up with a concept that she'd been doing for some time, and she's like, I could do that at SeaTac. So it was called the Red Sand Project, and it was all about bringing awareness to human trafficking. And it seems like it's a very subtle gesture for landscape art, but I think extremely successful. It was more than a football field and a half size art installation, and it was up for 1 year. And if you look at it, it's kind of it is the southern border of the U.S. and Mexico. But just at the same time, just this brilliantly bright thing right next to one of the busiest airports in the country. And the public, as they were waiting on their loved ones and whatnot in the cell lot, would go and walk this line, and it was it didn't come at any cost to the port. This artist had the project funded. So all we really had to do was oversee the installation of it and then have a good reception for it. And it was well received, and Crosscut wrote about it, and just really great thing to bring to the airport for like one of my first big temporary art projects. And since then, we've tried to challenge and keep that same momentum. So the next, we thought about the interiors, of course. You can't just do, it's good to give outside people who don't have a ticket the ability to see temporary public art. But inside, we were like, okay, well, let's raise the bar too and do more temporary exhibits in cases and give local and regional, and in this case, national artists the ability to show. So this is 3 cases that the airport, or me, Annabelle, worked with a local fabricator and designed these vitrines that house art safely and very cleanly in a 21st century manner. And this is an artist that we showed for Black History Month, but just extended it because it's a great kind of contemporary installation. Robert Pruitt, he's based in Harlem, and I worked with him in Houston, and he's also in the permanent collection at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport in the South Satellite Lounge Club at SEA. He's got a great little piece there that we purchased from Latin-owned gallery Copland Del Rio, who's just around the corner in Georgetown. And they have a great program there, bringing in local and national artists. But so you can see that installation still at SeaTac. And then this was one of our first in these new cases that we designed in collaboration with Pilchuck Glass School for their 50th anniversary. So they were celebrating their 50th, and we were like, oh, no better way than to collaborate with them and let them bring some art into our airports. And this is Preston Singletary, who the slide that Annabelle showed you with her in the international arrivals was next to one that we own, and it's in our collection. This was one that was on loan from or through the Pilchuck Glass School. A really heavy piece, but beautiful. It's cast glass, and it looks like marble, but beautiful piece. And Preston is an internationally known artist and showing all over right now. So we're ending the slide with one of my last projects, because I was talking about temporary art. This is a temporary art piece. And I don't know, I want to know if the Museum of Flight can corroborate this, because I boast about this a lot, that I've managed the only public art project in an air traffic control tower in the country. I think that's true. So somebody who's more knowledgeable about air traffic control towers proved me wrong. But this was an artist, Joanne Fleischhauer, and this was super meaningful to me because it was the last thing I did before I got on a plane and flew to Seattle to work here. It was at Intercontinental Airport in Houston, and Joanne Fleischhauer recreated the night sky on the dedication of that defunct air traffic control tower, which was designed by I.M. Pei, who at this time when this piece was done was 102 years old. He was still living. And if you don't know who I.M. Pei is, he did the pyramid. Yeah, the pyramid at the Louvre, which some people love, some people hate. But it's really cool that the country commissioned this architect to do air traffic control towers, and this was just such a subtle little piece, or an awesome chance for us to do an art piece 150 feet in the air, and kind of commemorating the work, or celebrating the work that air traffic control towers, or air traffic controllers do. So it was super fun to do it. I hope that I get to do something like that here in the city, working with Annabelle and local artists, because it was a super small budget. I'm not even going to say what it was, because Joanne basically did it for free. But anyway, I wanted to end with that, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A if anybody has any questions or thoughts. Thank you.
Well, so everybody loves a good heist story. Everybody knows, wants to steal a painting from a museum. What about the airport? Do you have the same sort of security concerns when it comes to your art collection that a museum does? And
That's interesting.
how does you?
Nobody is immune to I had a mentor who told me everything and anything happens to public art, and that's true. Stuff will happen to public art that you will never expect to happen to anything else. Stuff that happens to chairs isn't as bad as stuff that happens to public art. People are very brutal to cultural elements, and theft is also something that we take highly into consideration. Everything that we install is security mounted, or making sure that we're meeting certain building standards, seismic standards, right? So if there's an earthquake event, it doesn't fall off the wall. But I think that one day you will read about kind of a Mona Lisa-like event that occurred at the airport, and I don't know how I could elaborate further. I think our security is really tight now. Let's say that.
I was thinking, since you have so many placements of unique places where you can put art, what's one place you would never put art ever, no matter what it was?
The kids' play area. There's no kids here, so they're not going to get mad about that. Yeah, no, but what do you think? This is a great question.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good one. I was going to say next to cars, but we did this one. Next to cars or buses, something that's moving, but we...
Or next to food areas.
Yeah.
Because, there's just there's little particles of grease that will eventually get trapped in art, and then there's a lot of dust, and that just turns into a maintenance nightmare. But I think kids are probably nicer than restaurants.
I'm curious about these metal details that look like fish in the floor. Is that something that you worked on, and if there is any story behind it?
I love those artists. They're named Daniel and Judith Caldwell. They have a studio in White Center, if I'm not mistaken, right, Annabelle? And they hosted one of our AAAE conferences, in their foundry. They did that piece back in the early 90s, so before my time, but we do maintain it, so we make sure that it's a kind of maintenance-free piece, because it's bronze inlays, and people could walk over it, and the terrazzo clean, the machines that clean the terrazzo end up cleaning the art as well. The worst things we have to deal with sometime are maybe gum or a sticker that we have to peel off one of the bronze pieces. And they collaborated with an indigenous artist, Marvin Oliver, who did some Salish pieces as well. Because there's 300 plus bronzes. You just did a catalog on this. You could talk about that. The amount of work it took for them. They did it back in the 90s, and if I'm not mistaken, they were only supposed to do a quarter of that concourse, and they were so excited about it. And bringing in those are all native fish to the region that are stylized in their fashion. But they were let's do the entire concourse. So they did 3/4 more work for free, basically. Which, in my tenure, I don't want to ever do that, like expect artists to like give things away. But back then, I think they were just super ambitious and they wanted to do it. But yeah, it's one of the most revered pieces in the collection. And from a maintenance standpoint, I love it because it's really easy to take care of.
Yeah, I love it too, actually. And one more question. I think that maybe to general public who don't read those kind of articles and reviews from people who understand art, I think it's nice for us to see something on Instagram or on some social media.
Yeah, so hey, if before you leave, take a picture of, let's go back a couple slides to something that our external relations department might like, but take a picture and then like hashtag our Fly SEA folks and say, oh, we want to see more art. They will do it, I guarantee it. I think that they love it. I think that there's just so much that they're handling, like the external relations department that manages the Instagram and other social media pages that the port has. I think they just need to, aside from like, celebrating fun things like art and highlighting those about the regional works that we bring in, they also have to deal with like if there's a car accident at the airport or if there's a delay. So those things are almost regular and kind of take precedent sometimes. But we do want to hear, or we do want to share the stories of the artists that we work with. And like we're a small group, we can't do it alone. But I guarantee you, like public opinion matters. So yeah, take a picture and say, I want to see more art, and I bet they do it. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for that. Yeah, and I guess everybody, if you have a social media page, do that. Not just, it's like there's strength in numbers kind of thing. But yeah, thank you all so much. I know that y'all want to go out and look at there's a lot of art to see in addition to amazing permanent exhibits here at the Museum of Flight. And I just want to thank the Museum of Flight and then Annabelle for joining me in this talk. And then all of y'all for kind of hanging out with us.
One more thank you for Tommy and Annabelle.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.